For the next 45 minutes or so, and then I'll go back to the callers that are holding on news issues. We're joined by Dr. Russell Blaylock, retired medical doctor. He is a best-selling author, board-certified neurosurgeon, that's brain surgeon. He's a former clinical professor of neurology at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. And I'm not going to go over his whole bio, but he's extremely famous. And it came up decades ago with terms like excitotoxins and things like that that are now mainline accepted in the medical literature. And, of course, he also developed many of the now most commonly used forms of brain surgery. I'm not going to get into all that, but he's a brain surgeon's brain surgeon. And he's got a bunch of great websites. We'll give you some of those coming up today so you can visit his sites and learn more about what he's doing. And the good news is he travels the world speaking to, in some cases, thousands of physicians. I know because we went and interviewed him in Las Vegas when he was speaking to, looked like 1,000 top physicians, laying all the info you're about to hear out to them. So I'm not sitting here, just blowing smoke at the audience. I want you to know how effective he's been, because we need to understand that we're on the march and this tyranny is on the run. And that there are a lot of good people, lawyers, doctors, scientists, military men and women, prominent leaders that are telling the truth. And that's why we're seeing the alternative media explode while the mainstream media dies. 4 years ago, Dr. Blaylock came on and said this swine flu, H1N1, is a hoax. It's very dangerous, and it's going to increase the instances of the flu. And he gave a bunch of examples. A year later, they came out in the official Canadian government journals and admitted it doubled your chances of getting regular flu, gave people Guillain-Barré's, epilepsy, everything he said, because he, for decades, witnessed it. But he first got demonized all over the media for it. But so what? That's a badge of honor. He laid out for us 4 years ago what Obamacare would do. Now it's being implemented. You're seeing that all happen. So the reason I like to introduce some of our long-term guests, only come on a few times a year like this, is to understand the truth is out there, and the system knows the truth. This year, they're running ads, school's about to start, that it's the law, you've got to take vaccines. There is no law, you've got to take vaccines. They also lie in the news and say there's no side effects. Read the insert, folks. Go to the CDC. Read the vaccine you're taking and see the, in some cases, hundreds of pages per shot of what they are. It's a choice of, do you listen to people that are truthful and give you sources, or do you listen to liars? And that's why Dr. Blaylock joins us. Now, I first wanted to get him on last week about Coca-Cola running print ads and internet ads, but also TV ads are coming, defending aspartame that Dr. Blaylock has been extremely prominent in exposing. They're also saying it doesn't make you gain weight, even though big studies came out in, what was it, Harvard Medical Journal this year, saying it's linked to obesity. So he's the trailblazer, the first really prominent person 20-plus years ago to expose all this. So I thought I would just, we don't do this with most guests, give you all the things they've done. I've only told you a fraction of it. And we're going to get to that with him, but I wanted to first throw a curveball at him and say, Dr. Blaylock, you laid out as a physician what Obamacare would do by reading it. Now we're seeing the train wreck. A, what is Obamacare really designed to do? B, how do you think its implementation is going? And what can we do to reverse this? Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Alex. Well, the Obamacare thing, when I was interviewed by you, what I told you is that the interesting thing about the bill, all 2,000 pages of it, it's a gigantic blank check. What it actually says in writing, that you can come back and hold their feet to the fire like you do the Constitution or other laws, there's nothing specific in it. What it does, it says these decisions will be made later by the Secretary of Health and Human Services. That's all through the document. Well, who would enact a bill that's a blank check that says all these things, the design, the effects, the punishment, the cost, it's all going to be determined later. Well, only a fool would do such a thing, and of course Congress acts like a gigantic fool. They design this thing so that you can manipulate it continuously once it's enacted. Now, you hear a lot, and there's a lot of books published on what Obamacare means, what you need to know. Most of these things really don't get into the meat of this bill. This bill is going to change the face of America drastically. And what I mean by that, and the physicians aren't even aware of this, is in this, if you go by the people who design these things, their ultimate plan is to, number one, make most people to be seen by physicians' assistants, nurse practitioners, and not physicians. They've been wanting to do this for 50 years. They write about it extensively, and their model has been Cuba and other communist countries where this is done extensively. That is, you're taken care of by someone that's not a trained physician. Number two is that the physicians themselves are going to be encouraged to become general physicians, not specialists. What they know is that the cost of specialty care is enormously expensive compared to general care. When you look at the analysis of every socialist healthcare system in the world, Britain being a good example, in Canada, what they quickly discovered was two things about specialty care. Number one is the enormous expense, and number two is that they're very independent doctors. They don't like to be told what to do. In England, they had to compromise and let the independent doctors collect private fees. The only way they could keep them working. So they've learned that lesson now, and so what they've done in this bill is designed it so the punishments to the physician include imprisonment, loss of license, public vilification. There's a number of things that's going to be done. For instance, it clearly says that if you treat a patient in a hospital and that patient goes home and then ends up having to come back to the emergency room within a certain length of time, the doctor and the hospital are both going to be punished.
Well, let me stop you right there. My dad, who's very successful as an oral surgeon and dentist in medical management, he has made the decision to phase out in the next year and not do it anymore because they all get called in by the state boards. He goes down to the Capitol and is even in the meetings, and the feds are there and say, you work with us, you can make money, do whatever you want. If not, we're going to set you up and send you to prison. And if you dot an I wrong, you're going to go to jail. And my dad's just like, you know what, I'm out of here. And he says almost everybody he knows is leaving. And he knows, Dr. Blaylock, as you said, that the plan is to make everybody quit so they can just fully take it over.
Well, and you see, this is the alternative. What they want to do is replace American physicians with foreign physicians. For instance, the Cubans government had offered during Hurricane Katrina and several times to the state of Mississippi to send in Cuban physicians to help treat the poor. You know, they always have to use a hook. And the state of Mississippi refused, but they keep trying. Well, this is part of the plan and the model used by these think tanks is to use foreign physicians from Pakistan, for instance.
That's what the VA does.
Right, and so they bring more and more of these people in, so eventually the native American physician is no longer going to be around. And, of course, you know, the ones who persist and stay around, they're going to risk imprisonment, and which has already happened. You know, most of the public's not aware of how many physicians have been railroaded and sent to prison over errors and trying to interpret this uninterpretable coding nonsense they have to do. You know, no one knows the codes. They even went to the people who designed the codes and said, well, they don't know what it means. So here's a poor physician trying to figure out how to code his patient for the medical reimbursement. He has no idea how to do some of them. And they tell him, well, just pick something. And so he tries to get as close as he can. Then they come back years later, even 10 years later, and say, well, you miscoded this patient. That is an abuse of a federal patient, and you're going to prison.
Absolutely. And my father says exactly what you've been saying on the show 4 or 5 years ago, exposing this. And he says it's written to where there's no way to follow their rules. And that's why he says so many mid-sized companies that were actually providing great care across the board, medical, dental, you name it. They're just leaving that business. They're just getting out of it.
Sure.
Start.
You can't follow the law because, as you say, if you do one thing, you're in violation of certain statutes. You do the opposite, you're in violation of other statutes. So they have you coming and going. So no matter how careful you try to be, no matter how well you practice your art, you're subject to arrest and imprisonment. And, of course, you've got the media on the side of the government who's going to tell the government that you were a crook and you were cheating the patients and you were harming them and you deserved your prison term. I've seen this happen numerous times.
Exactly. But if you're a part of a big mega corporation, you've got the lawyers, you control the politicians, you're left alone. So it's big insurance companies trying to take over the market with the government in a fascist takeover. Stay there, Doctor. We're going to come right back to you. Folks, you know, if I sound upset here on air, it's because since I was 5 years old, my dad's been a dentist and then an oral surgeon, and he wants to keep working, but he just says he can't be part of this. They make it impossible not to break the law. And that's why I saw a statistic. Can you guys pull it up? I think it was in the Associated Press 2 weeks ago. They had a national Gallup poll of doctors, and they said 61% plan to retire early. And everything gets blamed on the doctors, the corrupt HMOs, the big insurance companies, who now tell them what to do. You know, we're going to come back and get into the excitotoxins and pushing aspartame with Dr. Blaylock, but right now, Dr. Blaylock, joining us here today, get into what the legislation does itself, because now it's not you saying this 5 years ago because you'd read the bill and nobody else would. It's now mainstream. Oh, your premium's up 53% in 2013. Oh, it's going to double by 2015. Oh, it is going to make everybody quit. Oh, it doesn't cover pre-existing conditions. Oh, it was written by big insurance companies. Oh, select corporations in Congress are exempt. On and on and on and on. Dr. Russell Blaylock.
Well, this is the modus operandi of virtually every socialist government in the world. I mean, you review the history of how the United Kingdom adopted its socialist health care system. It's the exact same thing. What they do in the beginning, they paint this beautiful picture. I call it a mural, a socialist mural. And they tell everybody, look, this is what it is going to be like. And they tell everybody, just keep looking at the mural of where this is going to be. Disease is going to decrease because of all this intensive health care. The number of diseases are going to fall dramatically, and therefore costs will fall and pay for itself. All of this was said in the beginning. The doctors were told, look, doctor, we want your advice. We want you on panels and boards. Here, we're going to set up a room. You write what you think the system ought to have, et cetera, et cetera. So they build all these beautiful pictures. Then it's approved. Once it's approved, they tell the doctors that they're writing stuff, so we're not going to need any of your material, so you can stop writing. They tell the people, just keep looking at the mural, and then as disaster piles in front of disaster, patients start being harmed and tons of thousands of cases. They tell them, well, you know, this is because there's doctors are resisting, doctors are sabotaging this. We just need to have more laws to control the doctors. Everything's blamed on the doctors. And so this modus operandi repeated over and over. And the historians who have analyzed the system carefully have stated that the characteristic of the socialists is every time the system fails, they just redouble their efforts. They never admit, well, it just doesn't work. Well, it's a disaster. They always redouble their efforts. They make it more oppressive. They add more laws, more punishment. They try to seek out more enemies. You know, in the Soviet Union, they labeled them enemies of the people. And, of course, that's the image they want. Well, this is not working because we've got enemies of the people sabotaging it. The doctors are too greedy. The doctors are doing this. And the public comes to believe it because it's all parroted by the media that they control. The doctors have no voice. You rarely hear from doctors what's going on. And as I've watched this slowly evolve over my lifetime, none of the stories of what was happening ever reached the media, ever. So the public is totally unaware. They don't know any of this is happening. I talked to people and I said, do you know that doctors are sent to jail for 10 years because he operated on an elderly man, corrected his cataract, and he went from blind to being able to play golf? They said, that's unbelievable. I said, of course it's unbelievable, but I know the case personally. I've talked to his family. He has a family of something like 6 or 7 children, and now he's in prison because he helped a man see. Well, that's what socialist systems do. If you're a doctor and you're costing the state too much money by taking care of people, you're punished. Because the idea is, in a socialist system, you have progressive denial of services. That's how they save money. The bureaucracy grows, and that's where the money goes, and the health care itself begins to shrink. Well, who costs the most money? The elderly, the people with chronic illnesses. So those are the people they concentrate on. Now, if you don't believe this, go to the tax-free foundations that deal with health issues for the last 50 years. They've written about it over and over and over, saying we need to find a way to discourage people from using health services, particularly the elderly. We need to deny operations. They created this system of life years, saying, well, if you have someone that's 65, 68 years old and they develop a bad hip, we calculate how long could they possibly live, and we tell them, well, you're not...
I tell you what, Dr. Blaylock, stay there. RussellBlaylockMD.com. Let's come back and continue along that line. If you look at communist art in the Soviet Union, Cuba, China, Eastern Europe, it's basically like the Zeitgeist cult movement, where they go, look at these wondrous, beautiful cities and free energy and all the science you're going to have, and you're going to work 2 hours a week, and we're going to get all the rich people. It's like Grapes of Wrath shows some real stories where small towns didn't want, 20,000 refugees in them, and so the cops would beat people up, which was wrong. But the answer is communism. That'll stop work camps. And then communism killed over 150 million people the last century alone on record. Upwards of 80 million in China alone. In actual work camps. So they show you all these newsreels of spaceships and science, but they're anti-family, they're anti-male, they're anti-freedom. What it is a system of criminals. And you've got big, multinational, offshore, above-the-law corporations that on record fund socialism. And I think that's my question for Dr. Russell Blaylock, MD, retired brain surgeon, and probably one of the leading voices exposing this. Everything you wrote for BlaylockWellnessCenter.com, Newsmax.com, everything that you put out has now unfortunately come out to be extremely, extremely accurate. And that's what my dad has said. He goes, they want to ruin all the health care. They want to make everybody quit. And that's what you've been saying. Now they're announcing they're going to bring in the foreign doctors. Now the cover of Newsweek says, yeah, the case to kill Granny. Bill Gates, now that it's law, says, yeah, we are going to kill an old lady and hire 10 teachers. And the teachers clap because they really believe that if somebody loses, they win. Now the communist wavelength, the communist phenomenon has now begun, but with ultra-rich, like Warren Buffett, sitting on top of it. Why do we see pressure from above, pressure from below, Dr. Blaylock, and then other points about how this is going to be implemented and ways to fight it?
Well, the genius of the revitalized communism was Antonio Gramsci. And he told them, he said, your Marxism-Leninism, particularly your Leninist policy of terror and war and mass killing, is no longer going to work. He said you need to use, as you said, pressure from above, pressure from below, and just gradually evolve the society into a collectivist socialist country, and it'll happen before they know it. They won't recognize it until it's done. Well, if you follow this as long as many of us, like Dennis Cuddy and I have, and Miguel Faria, what you find out is you've watched this. You've seen this evolution, this slow, gradual collectivism. Well, we're at the end point. And that's why this president, who's just a puppet, he's not the generator of these things, he's a puppet, But we're seeing all of the pieces fall in place now. They said, well, we built the structure from below and from above. Now we're ready to implement the final product, which is collectivism. And collectivism does not recognize individuals. So when you as an individual say, well, my hips are hurting every night, I can't hardly walk, I'm 70 years old, and I need hip replacement, the doctor agrees, but the state says, well, our actuarial table says that you may not live more than 2 to 5 years, and it's not worth it, so here's a stick you can walk around on, and here's some pain pills. That's the new medicine. People don't understand that. They're looking at the shiny light that says your health care will be free. Well, what's free is the stick, not the surgery. In their mind, they're saying, oh, I get free hips. No, you get a stick to walk around on. The man with the advanced cataracts is told, in his mind, he thinks, oh, under Obamacare, I get free cataract surgery. No, you get a white cane with a red tip on it. And you can sit in your house and listen to the music on the radio. That's what you do for your health care. They don't understand that, and it's what I say is that socialist paints a beautiful mural. If you look at the propaganda art of China, it's very instructive. All the pictures of smiling children, everybody clothed, everybody happy, everybody enthusiastic about their work, but it's all baloney. It's just a fake reality. Unfortunately, most Americans are looking at this mural, and they're not looking at the true reality. They don't read. They don't look at the writings of these people that are the leaders of this, because they clearly stated Brzezinski, the Zbigniew Brzezinski, who played the number one part in choosing Obama as a presidential candidate, and he appeared on MSNBC and said this is the most qualified man to be president of the United States. Well, if you read Brzezinski, who was a co-founder and head of the Trilateral Commission, one of the most powerful groups in the world, he states his admiration for Marxism. And he said, well, yes, we had some totalitarianism, but we've learned from that, and the greatest thing we could do is continue this Marxist revolution. So here is a guy that's one of the co-founders and heads of one of the most powerful organizations in the entire world in terms of foreign policy, economics, you name it, education, and the people he's collected within this organization. And he's saying the most qualified candidate is a Marxist, someone who's going to fulfill the Marxist vision, and we'll tell him how to do that. So you don't look at Obama and say, oh, this is Obamacare, and this is Obama that, and Obama this, and if we could just get rid of Obama, everything would be fine. No, it's the string pullers in the shadows, the Rockefellers, the Brzezinskis, the Kissingers, the people that are members of Bilderbergers and Council on Foreign Relations. One of their chief protections is they tell the public, well, people who think that are conspiracy theorists. They're dangerous. You shouldn't even listen to that. It's all ridiculous. There's no evidence whatsoever, so don't even look at it. Well, Dennis Cuddy has spent his whole life as a historian studying this in great detail. All of his books document it. It's all highly referenced. He's a meticulous historian. I know him personally. You read his books, you'll find the truth, but they're terrified of the truth. I recently wrote an article for a friend of mine's website, and the title of the article is When Rejecting Orthodoxy Becomes a Mental Illness. And what spurred me to write this article was a magazine article in Scientific American Mind. In this, the article states that people who do not believe in global warming are not only a danger to society, but they're mentally ill. They have a form of schizophrenia.
Oh, they had Psychology Today 2 years ago with a former Clinton administration official come out and say, I am insane because I believe there's a plan to set up a corporate world government, which I can watch Davos and see him on C-SPAN saying. And they know full well what they're doing. Last week, MSNBC said libertarians were behind the bombing in Boston, and that I'm the leader, quote, the mad prophet, and that I am a deeply racist person. And Dr. Blaylock, They didn't show one piece of evidence. I mean, this is really beyond the Soviet Union in how transparent the propaganda is. Let me ask you this question. How well is it going for them?
Well, it's very successful. And the reason it's so successful is because this intrusion into the American Republic has been occurring at least since 1902 in a very progressive way. They made sure that they infiltrated the education system through the creation of the NEA, the National Education Association, which was a creation and funded by Rockefeller Foundation and Ford and Carnegie. They set the curriculum. They made sure the textbooks were rewritten to give the globalist perspective. All of this is a matter of record. It can be checked. It's historically accurate. But what they tell the public is, don't listen to those people. Don't look at their evidence. And I used an example in my article. I said during the fluoride debates, professor and head of dental school told their students that when they debate people about fluoride, or going to talk about fluoride, said never debate the anti-fluoridationists because they'll always win, because they have all the facts on their side. They present it only when you're unopposed. Well, that's the way they're trying to create this situation now, is that anyone who points this out and says, well, here's the evidence, look at it. They want to make sure no one looks at the evidence. So they just discount you as a loony, and not only a loony, but now, according to this article, you're mentally ill. Well, that's what happened in the Soviet Union. They used to put people in gulags.
Well, when you look at the Obama campaign posters, they are famous Soviet-era style done. I mean, it's open, but Americans almost don't have an immune system to tyranny because it's been so long since we were under it. We're almost like Native Americans exposed to smallpox. We don't even know what hit us. But expanding on this, they have articles every year, right at the start of school, happening right now, that we cover that say there are no side effects. Anyone saying it is a liar. Anyone saying it is a fraud. Well, anybody could read the insert and see that. And I just think about the writers who know they're lying, but who go along with this feeling like they're part of the winning team. I want to tell the middle class something. You're always the main target of the authoritarians once they take over, especially collectivist communists. And I want to warn the police and military and everybody else. You're not going to be allowed to continue on in your way of life once this fully comes in. You are the #1 targets. Dr. Blaylock, you're a historian in your own right and studied all this with a doctor's focus. Am I wrong in saying that the fools that open the drawbridge to let the enemy come in and do this are going to be the first on the chopping block?
Well, Robert Conquest wrote a little book. He's a world expert on Soviet communism and Chinese communism, and he wrote a book, What to Do When the Communists Come. And it's about what would happen if there's a communist takeover of America. And he lists all the groups. And he said most people think the #1 target of the new communist rulers would be the John Birch Society or some conservative group. He said it won't. It's going to be the most left-wing group. It's going to be the left fascists. It's going to be the extremists who help bring them to power because they can't trust them. So all of the people out here going along with the program and helping them out and helping them lie, you're going to be the first victim. They can't trust you. And Lenin even talked about it. He says someone who betrayed their own country can't be trusted. So even though we like them and because they help us win, once we win, they're the first ones eliminated. There's a picture of Lenin with 6 or 7 members of the original revolution. They said in the picture, Lenin is the only survivor. All the rest were killed. And that's true. They went through these programs where they just killed all the original revolutionaries except for a handful.
That's right. Anybody can search the term Lenin and photoshopped revolutionaries, and they'll see the original leaders that brought them to power, all of them executed, all of them tortured to death, all of them killed, and then later they just put new faces in, and then they did that each purge. I mean, we're bringing in a nightmare system, folks, that tramples and you are trampled upon. George Orwell worked with the communists and then worked in MI6 and found out they wanted to bring in INGSOC, and he wrote in 1984, against Stalinistic communism, describing exactly what would happen under a system like this. And folks, that's why I get so upset, is that I love this country, I love my family, and we know the path we're on, and it's so painful I mean, Dr. Blaylock, I know as things unfold and you're proven right, you're not happy about it. You're upset that you were right. You're upset that we didn't stop this. It's not like we're up here saying, oh, we're grandstanding, we know everything you don't. We just want to have a future. Am I right in saying that?
Sure, I wish I was wrong. That's what pleased me more than that I'm wrong. And, of course, that's sort of what's happened throughout my life as I watched this all taking shape. I kept hoping, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people are going to wake up. Maybe they're going to vote these scoundrels out. Maybe the people will pass laws to protect themselves against this tyranny, but it's just not happening. So I don't want it to be true, that's for sure. You know, I have family. I don't want them to suffer under this system. And I've read every account just about of the life under these systems, and I can tell you, you have no idea how horrifying it is. You know, read the book Man is Wolf to Man.
Every control freak scumbag is given power.
It's horrifying. You know, all of these people have come forward from every communist system in the world, have written books about their experiences, and you can't even imagine the horror of it.
Well, sir, I really appreciate your time. We've only got about 2-3 minutes left, and again, thank you for spending time with us. In closing, the original reason I got you on, what do you make of Coca-Cola coming out saying aspartame doesn't make you gain weight and isn't bad for you, as all the mainline studies pile on, confirming your original research on excitotoxins? I mean, is this just them desperately trying to stem their sales imploding? I mean, is this a sign of our victory?
Yeah, they're losing a lot of money on their Diet Cola drink, and it's snowballing because people are starting to wake up, and so they want to protect that $35.1 billion revenue they have. So this is protection, but again, where's your regulatory agencies that have looked at this research, which is extensive, and shows this aspartame is very damaging to human health? I thought they were supposed to protect us. Where are they? Well, they're in league with the Coca-Cola company and the PepsiCo and all the companies that make these products. They're protecting them. They're shielding them. And that's what you see with these so-called protective regulatory agencies. They become the shield for the multinational globalist corporations.
You're absolutely right. Briefly, in the minute we've got left, break down what aspartame does, sir.
Well, aspartame in your stomach combines to form a nitrosamine carcinogenic compound. When it's absorbed from the GI tract, it goes to the liver, and the methanol is converted to formaldehyde, which is highly carcinogenic. And it's been shown to produce breast cancers, lymphomas, leukemias, brain tumors. And, of course, the fastest-growing malignancy in people under age 30 is lymphoma leukemia. I've never seen so much. So you have to also keep in mind that the combined toxicity, when you combine aspartame with pesticides, herbicides, mercury, you just magnify the toxicity to the brain as well as carcinogenicity. So the more of these things you allow in the food supply, the worse this problem is going to be. But I have been shocked at the number of leukemias and lymphomas I've seen. It's just unbelievable.
And the cancer rates are just exploding across the board, and now they're putting it in thousands of products, and it just shows the sheer madness that we're under. Well, Dr. Blaylock, wellnesscenter.com. Thank you so much for spending time with us, sir.
Well, thank you, Alex. Keep up the good work.
I'll try, sir. There he goes, a national treasure. We're going to come back, as I said, take some phone calls for the next 2 segments.